Certainty can feel like solid ground until it collapses beneath you. These moments when our deepest assumptions about life are completely overturned are not accidents. They are invitations. Zen stories are ancient tools designed to do exactly that, to shatter the illusions we hold about reality, our sense of self, and the world we think we know. By the end of this journey, you will see how these simple tales can dismantle the walls of your own perception. We will explore what happens when a master asks for the sound of one hand clapping, and how a simple cup of tea can reveal a mind too full to learn. What is the one belief you hold that feels absolutely unshakable right now? A student approaches his master, heart pounding with a question he believes has a clever answer. The master looks at him not with judgment but with a profound stillness. He asks the student to show him the sound of one hand clapping. The student freezes. He might mentally simulate the action, one hand moving through empty air, and he listens for a sound that is not there. He tries to invent a philosophical answer, a poetic one, anything to fill the silence. But every attempt falls short because the question itself is a trap for the thinking mind. This is the famous koan, a puzzle that cannot be solved with logic. Its origin lies in the training halls of Zen monasteries, where it was used to shatter a very specific illusion, our deep-seated dependence on duality. We see the world in pairs, light and dark, good and bad, self and other. We believe for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every clap there must be two hands and a sound. The koan confronts this directly. It asks you to perceive something that exists outside of this paired reality. The struggle of the student is our own struggle. We try to think our way to an answer, searching through the filing cabinets of our memory and the workshops of our reason, but the answer is not found there. The master is not waiting for a clever description of silence or a witty retort. He is waiting for a demonstration that comes from a place before thought, from a direct experience of reality that is not filtered through concepts. Imagine the visuals, the master sitting serenely in a quiet garden, his very presence a testament to a mind at rest, not grasping for answers. He is pointing the student toward a different way of knowing, one that does not rely on the crutches of language and logic. This story forces a confrontation with the limitations of your own rational mind. What if the most important truths are not things you can figure out, but things you must simply and utterly become? That moment of frustrated silence, of a mind brought to its logical limit, is precisely where real learning can begin. There is another story, one that moves from the abstract puzzle of the koan to a tangible, physical lesson. A learned man, a scholar who had spent his life accumulating knowledge, once traveled to meet the Zen master Nanin. He arrived brimming with theories and philosophies, eager to discuss and debate, to demonstrate the breadth of his understanding. He sat before the master and immediately began to speak of all he had studied, all the books he had consumed, and all the ideas he held to be true. Nanin listened quietly, offering no interruption. He then invited the scholar to join him for tea. As they sat, Nanin began to pour the tea into the man's cup. He poured, and he continued to pour. The cup filled to the brim, and then the tea began to spill over the sides, cascading onto the table and dripping onto the floor. The scholar watched in disbelief, finally unable to stay silent any longer. He exclaimed, "Master, the cup is full. It cannot hold any more." Nanin stopped pouring and looked directly at the man. He said, "You are like this cup. You are so full of your own opinions, your knowledge, and your speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The illusion here is the illusion of knowing. The scholar was not hindered by a lack of intelligence, but by an overabundance of it. His mind was so crowded with what he already believed to be true that there was no space left for genuine insight. He was trying to add a drop of wisdom to an ocean of his own preconceptions, and the two could not mix. This is the need for what Zen calls beginner's mind, a mind that is open, eager, and free from the clutter of prior knowledge. It is the mind of a child seeing something for the first time, full of wonder and without the filters of judgment. Imagine the visual of that dark tea overflowing the pristine white cup, a messy, undeniable metaphor for a mind that has no room to receive. The scholar's dawning realization was not about adding one more fact to his collection. It was the humbling, shocking understanding that his greatest asset, his knowledge, had become his biggest obstacle. What are you holding in your own cup that might be preventing a deeper, more direct experience of your own life? That overflowing cup was a private lesson, a quiet confrontation between a master and a student. But what happens when the entire world seems to pour its scorn into your life? In a small village, the respected Zen master Hakuin was known for his purity and serene character. A nearby family owned a food shop, and their young, unmarried daughter began to show signs of pregnancy. When her parents pressed her for the father's name, ashamed and frightened, she finally spoke the master's name. The rage was immediate. Her parents stormed to Hakuin's simple dwelling, holding their sobbing daughter before him and shouting their accusations. The entire village soon turned against him, their respect curdling into contempt. They spat insults as he walked, their trust completely broken. Through it all, Hakuin's only reply was a calm, simple question: "Is that so?" He accepted the baby when it was born, taking the infant into his home to care for it with utter devotion. A year passed before the girl, overcome with guilt, confessed the truth to her parents. The real father was a young man from the fish market. Horrified, the family rushed back to Hakuin's home, prostrating themselves before him, begging for forgiveness for their terrible slander. They took the child back, their words tumbling over one another in apology, and the master's only response, as he gently handed the now 1-year-old baby back to them, was the same. Is that so? The illusion here is the illusion of a fixed identity, the story we tell ourselves about who we are and how we must be seen by others. Hakuin was attached to none of it. He did not cling to his reputation as a holy man, nor did he resist the new identity of a disgraced scoundrel. He accepted the praise and the blame with the same equanimity, because he knew both were fleeting, insubstantial echoes. His true self was untouched by the opinions of the village, just as the sky is untouched by the clouds that pass through it. Imagine the powerful visuals of this story. The furious crowd, their faces twisted in judgment, and in the center, the master, a picture of undisturbed peace, quietly feeding the child as if it were his greatest honor. He did not see the situation as a problem to be solved or an injustice to be corrected. He simply met each moment with a full and open heart, whether it contained a screaming infant or a weeping family. His power came from his total freedom from the ego's desperate need to be right, to be respected, to be seen in a particular light. How much of your own energy is spent maintaining a certain image, defending your name, or resisting a label someone else has given you? This story shatters the illusion that your peace depends on what others think of you. A thief crept into the small hut of a Zen master, expecting to find valuables in the darkness. Instead, he found the master sitting awake, calmly observing him. The thief froze, caught and ashamed. The master spoke gently, "You have come a long way to visit me, and you should not return empty-handed. Please take my clothes as a gift." Bewildered, the thief accepted the bundle of robes. The master then added, "It is a pity I have nothing else to give you. But you can have the moon, too." He pointed to the full, brilliant moon hanging in the night sky, and then to a bucket of water by the door, where the moon's perfect reflection shimmered on the surface. "Take that," the master said. The thief, now utterly confused, reached into the bucket, his fingers breaking the image into 1,000 rippling fragments. This story shatters the deepest illusion of possession. We spend our lives accumulating things, believing we can own objects, land, even our own identities. We say my house, my car, my body, my thoughts, building a fortress of me and mine. But the master, by giving away everything, even the moon, exposes this as a beautiful shared dream. The thief could not steal the moon from the sky, and he could not keep its reflection in the bucket. In the same way, we do not truly own anything. We are temporary custodians of objects that will outlast us, inhabitants of bodies that are constantly changing, and hosts to thoughts that come and go like weather. The master was not just being poetic, he was pointing to a fundamental truth of existence, that everything is on loan from the universe. The clothes, the hut, even his own life were not his to cling to. By offering them freely, he demonstrated a freedom that comes from having nothing to lose. Imagine the animation, the thief's rough hand disturbing the water, the moon's image dissolving into chaotic waves before slowly, inevitably, reforming into perfect stillness. That is the nature of all we try to possess. It is all a reflection, temporary and dependent on conditions. True peace is not found in gathering more reflections, but in realizing you are the clear water itself, the open space that holds everything without needing to claim any of it. What reflection are you currently reaching for, mistaking it for something you can actually hold on to? Two monks, bound by a vow of celibacy, walked in silence along a road churned to thick mud by recent rains. Ahead of them, a woman of remarkable beauty stood stranded, her fine silks threatened by the deep muck. She could not cross. Without a moment's hesitation, the elder monk walked forward, scooped her into his arms, and carried her to the firm ground on the other side. She bowed her thanks and went on her way, and the two monks continued their journey in silence. For miles, the younger monk simmered. His face was a storm of judgment and confusion. How could his revered elder, a man of such discipline, so casually break their sacred rule? He had touched a woman. He had held her in his arms. The transgression played over and over in the younger monk's mind, building into a heavy burden of righteousness and disdain. Finally, hours later, he could contain himself no longer. He turned to the elder and burst out, "How could you carry that woman? We are not permitted to touch females." "It is against our vows." The elder monk looked at his companion, his own expression one of serene lightness. He replied, "My brother, I set that woman down hours ago, back at the roadside. Why are you still carrying her?" The illusion shattered was not about morality itself, but about our attachment to the rules we mistake for wisdom. The younger monk was trapped by the form of the rule, the literal interpretation. He believed righteousness was in the action itself, the not touching. The elder monk was guided by the spirit of compassion, the purpose behind the rules. He saw a human being in need and acted to alleviate suffering, his mind free and unattached to the act once it was complete. He did not carry the woman in his mind, turning the event into a story of virtue or sin. He simply did what was needed and then let it go. The younger monk, however, was not carrying the woman. He was carrying the weight of his own judgment, a story he had written and was choosing to clutch tightly. His burden was not the rule, but his rigid, unyielding attachment to it. This is the difference between a morality that is a cage and a compassion that is a liberating force. We see this in our own lives, clinging to grievances and past mistakes long after the event itself is over. We replay the words someone said, the slight we experienced, the error we made, carrying the muddy weight of it for miles and years. We believe we are upholding a principle, when in truth we are only punishing ourselves with the memory. The elder monk's question hangs in the air, a gentle challenge to every grudge and every rigid belief we hold. What story are you still carrying that another person has long since set down? A student once asked the master Bankei to describe his state of mind. He wanted to know what profound meditation the master was in while he gave lectures, or what deep wisdom he contemplated while eating his meals. Bankei's reply was disarmingly simple. He said, "When I give a talk, I just give a talk. When I eat, I just eat." The student was baffled. Surely there was more to it than that. He pressed further, but the master's answer remained the same. There was no hidden technique, no secret mantra. There was just the act itself, complete and undivided. This story dismantles perhaps the most persistent illusion of all, the illusion of a separate self. We live with a constant narrator in our heads, a voice that comments on everything we do. It says, now I am walking, now I am working, I am happy, I am bored. We believe this voice is the real us, a stable, constant self that is having these experiences. But Bankei points to a different reality. When he eats, there is just eating. There is no I that is separate from the act of eating. The smell of the food, the movement of the hand, the taste on the tongue, all of it is one seamless event. The moment you add I am eating, you have split the world in two. You have created an eater and the food, a subject and an object. This is the duality that Zen seeks to dissolve. Imagine the simple, mindful visuals of a person chopping wood. There is just the weight of the axe, the sound of the split log, the scent of fresh pine. There is no person thinking, I am a woodcutter, or picture someone drawing water from a well. There is just the rope in the hands, the bucket descending into the cool darkness, the splash as it hits the surface. There is no separate self directing the action. It is all one flowing movement. This is the experience of non-duality, not as a philosophical concept, but as a direct, lived reality. The master's mind is not elsewhere, judging or analyzing. It is fully immersed in the one thing happening right now. Your own life is a series of these moments, yet how many of them are you truly present for? How often are you actually drinking your coffee, or are you just holding the cup while your mind races through a conversation from yesterday and a meeting set for tomorrow? The narrator in your head creates a gap between you and your own experience, turning the vibrant, direct world into a story about the world. Bankei's Every Minute Zen is an invitation to close that gap, to stop telling the story of your life and simply live it. What would remain if that inner voice fell silent, even for just a single breath? That thief, clutching the master's robes, stood frozen not by fear of punishment but by the shock of unconditional generosity. The darkness that had cloaked his intentions was pierced by a light he could not comprehend. He had come to take, and instead he was given everything. He returned the next night, not to steal but to return the robes. He found the master sitting in the same spot, as if waiting for him. The thief did not speak. He simply laid the folded clothes on the ground and knelt before the master, his head bowed. In that silence, a question was asked without words, and an answer was given in the same language. The master accepted him as a disciple. This story shatters the profound illusion of a fixed identity, the idea that a person is inherently a thief or inherently bad and must remain so. The master's compassion did not see a label. It saw a human being lost in the shadows of his own actions. By refusing to treat the man as a criminal, by offering a gift instead of condemnation, the master did not reinforce the identity of thief. He offered a new one, the identity of a guest, of a person worthy of generosity. This act of radical acceptance created a space for transformation. It illustrated that what we call badness is often just a pattern, a habit of mind born from circumstance and reinforced by the expectations of others. When someone is always treated as a thief, they begin to believe that is all they are. But when they are seen as something more, that new seed of identity can take root and grow. The core of this transformation is the Zen concept of Buddha nature, the idea that every single being, without exception, possesses an innate capacity for awakening and inherent goodness. It is not something that needs to be acquired or built. It is already there, like a clear spring buried under layers of rock and mud. The master's kindness was not creating the spring. It was simply beginning to clear away the debris, allowing the pure water beneath to finally flow. Imagine the visual of this encounter. The thief is first shown only as a silhouette, a shape defined by shadow and menace. Then the master lights a single candle, and its glow falls not on a monster, but on a man's confused and weary face. The act of giving the robes is like that candlelight, illuminating the humanity that was always there. It asks a powerful question of us. How often do we freeze the people in our lives into a single story? seeing only the mistake they made, the role they played, the flaw we believe defines them. And in doing so, how do we prevent their transformation and perhaps even our own? A samurai warrior known for his fierce temper and unshakable courage once stood before the gates of a quiet Zen monastery. He had fought in 100 battles, but the one question that haunted him was one his sword could not answer. He demanded an audience with the master, his voice echoing in the tranquil courtyard. "Tell me, old man," he boomed, "do heaven and hell truly exist?" The master looked up from his meditation, his eyes holding a glint not of fear but of recognition. He took in the warrior's polished armor, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, and the storm of impatience in his eyes. The master replied with a tone of pure contempt. "Why should I waste my time answering a stupid, ugly lout like you? You are nothing but a pathetic puppet for some petty lord." The air itself seemed to freeze. No one spoke to a samurai that way. Insulted to his very core, the warrior's face turned a deep crimson. A roar of pure, unthinking rage erupted from him as he drew his long, gleaming sword, raising it high to strike the master down. "This is hell," the master said softly, his voice cutting through the fury like a clear bell. The sword stopped in mid-air. The warrior stood trembling, the master's words seeping into his consciousness not as an idea but as a direct experience. He had been plunged into a personal hell, a realm of scorching anger and the urge to destroy, all created in an instant by a few carefully chosen words. He slowly lowered his sword, his breath returning, the fire in his eyes cooling into a stunned clarity. He bowed deeply, humbled by the visceral understanding. The master smiled gently, "And that," he said, "is heaven." The story shatters the illusion that heaven and hell are physical places we enter after death. It reveals them as states of mind born from our reactions to the world. The warrior's circumstances had not changed. The master was still the same man who had insulted him. The only thing that transformed was the warrior's own inner state. His rage was hell, a self-made prison of suffering. His calm, open-minded humility was heaven, a realm of peace and connection. We do this every day. We believe the traffic jam is creating our frustration, that our boss email is creating our anxiety, that a rainy day is creating our sadness. We point to the outside world and blame it for our internal weather, but the Zen master points a finger back at our own minds. The traffic jam is just cars. The email is just words, the rain is just water. It is our reaction, our resistance, our story about what these events mean that conjures the flames of hell or the peace of heaven. Visualize the warrior's face, first contorted in a mask of fiery anger, the world around him seeming to burn with his outrage. Then, watch as that mask melts away, revealing the calm, understanding man beneath, the same world now appearing serene and manageable. The gate to paradise was never a physical door. It was the space between a trigger and your response. Who holds the key to that gate, if not you? The warrior's sword was sheathed, but the battle within him had just begun. He had tasted the difference between heaven and hell, yet the path to lasting peace felt impossibly long. This is a struggle familiar to anyone who has ever set out on a journey of personal growth. A dedicated martial artist once devoted himself to the pursuit of enlightenment. He trained for years, meditating for hours each day, studying every text he could find, and pushing his body to its absolute limit. Yet, despite all his immense effort, he felt no closer to the profound awakening he sought. He was exhausted, frustrated, and convinced he was failing. In desperation, he went to his master and confessed his sense of stagnation. "I am working harder than anyone," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "Why have I not reached enlightenment?" The master listened patiently, then handed the young man an empty wooden bowl and pointed to a nearby well. "Go and fill this bowl with water," he instructed. "Keep filling it until it overflows." The student, though puzzled, obeyed. He drew water from the well and began to pour it carefully into the bowl. He watched as the water level rose, expecting some profound lesson to reveal itself when it spilled over the rim. He poured and poured, but the bowl never seemed to fill. He looked closer and saw tiny cracks in the wood. The water was seeping out as quickly as he was pouring it in. The bowl would never overflow. He returned to his master, bowl in hand, and explained the problem. The master nodded slowly. "Your mind is like this bowl," he said. "It is full of cracks, the cracks of your striving, your desire for progress, and your attachment to a future goal. You cannot be filled because you are constantly leaking your energy into the effort itself." The illusion here is the illusion of progress. We approach spiritual growth as if it were a mountain to be climbed, with enlightenment waiting for us at a distant summit. We believe we must acquire something we lack, a special state of mind or a secret knowledge. We measure our days by how much closer we think we are getting, and we despair on the days we feel we have slipped backward. But the Master's lesson reveals that enlightenment is not a destination to be reached. It is not something you add to yourself. It is what remains when you stop trying to be something you are not. The bowl does not need to be filled. It needs to be repaired. It needs to be emptied of the very idea that it is empty. The visual is simple yet devastating. The student's intense focus on the rising water, his anticipation of the moment it would spill, mirrors our own fixation on milestones and achievements. We pour effort and discipline into our lives, waiting for the moment we will finally overflow with wisdom and peace. But if our fundamental stance is one of lack, of needing to get somewhere else, we are like the cracked bowl. Our efforts are futile because they reinforce the very sense of incompleteness we are trying to escape. The real work is not about adding more water. It is about noticing the cracks. It is about letting go of the striving, relaxing the frantic effort, and simply being present with what is. In that stillness, the cracks of seeking begin to close on their own. What if you stopped trying to reach the mountain summit and simply appreciated the solid ground beneath your feet right now? A monk, after years of solitary practice, felt a profound shift within himself. He believed he had finally transcended the messy world of human feeling, rising to a state of perfect, undisturbed equanimity. He went to his master and declared with pride, "I have reached a place beyond love and hate. I feel no attachment, no aversion. My heart is perfectly still." He expected praise for this ultimate achievement. Instead, the master looked at him with deep sadness. He replied, "That is not Zen, that is a heart of stone." The master shattered the young monk's most cherished illusion, the idea that spiritual attainment meant becoming invulnerable, a fortress against the world. True enlightenment is not a removal of our humanity, it is its ultimate fulfillment. It does not mean you no longer feel love or grief. It means you feel everything completely, without the ego's desperate interference, without the need to cling to pleasure or push away pain. The monk had mistaken numbness for peace, isolation for freedom. He had climbed the mountain seeking to escape the storms, only to find himself in a barren, frozen landscape where nothing could grow, not even compassion. Imagine the visual of this monk sitting alone in his sparse cell, his posture perfect, his face a mask of serene detachment. Then contrast this with the world outside his window, a world of messy, beautiful human connection. A mother gently tending to a child's scraped knee, two friends sharing a laugh that holds decades of understanding, a stranger offering a hand to someone who has stumbled. These are not distractions from the path, they are the very expressions of it. The master was not advocating for a life of emotional chaos, but for a heart that remains open and responsive, like a clear pond that reflects the sky without holding onto it. A stone does not feel the rain, but it also cannot nurture life. The enlightened heart is not a stone. It is the fertile soil where all of life, with its joys and its sorrows, can take root and flower. What have you been trying to harden yourself against, believing it was a sign of strength when it was really just another wall? These stories are not a collection of ancient curiosities. They are a single, sharp instrument designed to cut through the very fabric of our perceived reality. One by one, they challenge our most stubborn illusions. The koan shatters our reliance on a logical, dualistic mind. The overflowing cup dismantles the illusion of knowing. Hakuin's ordeal breaks the chains of a fixed identity and reputation. The master's gift to the thief reveals the emptiness of possession. The two monks on the road expose our attachment to rules and judgment. Bankei's simple actions point to the illusion of a separate self. The samurai sword shows us that heaven and hell are states of our own creation. And the cracked bowl teaches us that enlightenment cannot be achieved through striving, for it is already here, obscured only by our effort to grasp it. The ultimate goal of this journey was never to give you more knowledge to store in an already full cup. It is an invitation to unlearn. It is a call to empty your cup, to quiet the narrator in your head, and to see the world for one breathtaking moment with the fresh, unclouded eyes of a beginner. This is not an intellectual exercise. It is a shift in perception, a return to the direct experience of life before we labeled it. So as we leave these stories behind, I leave you with a single question, a quiet call to action. Look at your own life, at the beliefs you hold most tightly, at the stories you tell yourself about who you are and how the world works. Which of your own illusions feels the most solid, the most real? And which one might be ready to shatter? Share the story that resonated most deeply with you in the comments below. Let us continue this conversation and help each other see the world, not as we think it is, but as it truly is.